Income behavior such as activity level, social ability, and curiosity. It's really sociability, it's not social ability, it's sociability. So we know this, and you should know it. That's basically the answer I'm looking for. Not more, not less, really. This is the concise, easy, quick explanation. It says the meaning, and it doesn't go into long. So a lot of people had the right answer in a general sense, but it wasn't complete enough for what I was looking for. So I want you to think about this, okay? I didn't make a copy of this briefing, but I can do it before the midterm. I'll give you these answers so you can look at them. The second one is temperament and disposition. Both of these are basically the same thing. They're extensions of inherited behaviors in the sense that they're used to describe a reorganized form of behavior that is inherited. Temperament related mostly to moods and emotions, while disposition is more general term, in more general terms refers to behavior that are habitual. For examples, emotional reactive person, Chiron, okay, is behavioral. The behavior is quick reaction, and curiosity would be inquisitive. And we didn't use those exact words, but I don't expect, at the third year, I don't expect you to have a vocabulary background now. Okay, so you can use these words, and you can use other words to explain the same thing. You don't have you can relate these and transfer information from all your classes to here. And I'll give you points for trying, even if it's not 100% correct. But copying it right out of the book doesn't really help you. So that's why I'm not going to give you points for, I'm not going to give you extra points. I'm not going to fail you for it. But I want you to express yourself. Answer C. Physical appearance affects and influences personality in the following manner. Attractive individuals enjoy greater and less stressful social interactions and acceptance of peers. They become more outgoing and social than less attractive individuals. So it's easier for them, but it's not conclusive. There's also characteristics of intelligence and success in school, which is not limited only to it's not limited to attractiveness, which can make people more socially interactive. So you should write those two down, right? And answer the first answer B. The maturing child will develop a different rate, mostly dependent on nutrition and genetics. And we talked about genetics, and the idea here is hereditary and biological. Nutrition is also biological. If children lack nutrition, they will not develop properly. So they don't talk about that in the book very much, but I wanted to. Okay, you can leave, you can go, it's okay. Is she okay? Okay, so listen to this, because it's an idea, you know, and these ideas now you should be able to stick them together easily. Early maturing children experience greater acceptance by their adult caretakers, such as teachers, coaches, and even parents. Parents recognize their children are older and treat them as older if they appear older. And they tend to give them greater responsibility. So this is an experience for the child, and it's because of physical development. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, well you can compare that to your answer. And if you want to argue your grade, it's okay. You can. You're late now, Mr. Hunter.
By rule in this video right now on 203.
I don't know what the problem is, but it's you're 15 minutes late. Okay. So have a seat. Okay, so number two idea is genetic influences. This is the problem. The part of our body and personality that comes from our parents is genetically influences our personality. When we are young, we seem to be very much the same, but to a psychologist, neonates are different in certain ways. The characteristics of babies that describe their behavior are considered to be dispositional. This means that, now a lot of people wrote a lot of things, but didn't really focus in on the meaning the way I was expecting you to. Some behaviors are controlled by genetics and inherited from parents. This is the biological connection to personality development. Hold on a second. This dispositional behavior is connected to genetic inheritance. It's in the terms of activity level, sociability, and Joey, I'm trying to be quiet, please, a minute. I'm thinking while I'm talking. Okay, please. Curiosity. These behaviors are related to basic biological activities, such as activity level, curiosity, and sociability. Disposition. Another name that describes disposition is temperament. This expresses the idea that our behavior and moods are determined by our physical bodies, that the differences between people's disposition and emotions have a biological basis, maybe not 100%, but as babies they're considered to be 100%, and as you get older you learn how to reinforce these things, are reinforced by the activity of behaving in this way. One is activity level, curiosity, and sociability. So it's basically the same answer as before. List and describe characteristics of appearance. They are their face, height, your body. There are several of them. This is your answer you gave me. I accepted all of them. If you look on page 60 in the book, they talk about several. They give you several aspects which are worded a little different, so it's okay to use the word you do. Tall, strong, heavy, well coordinated. Okay? Independent, aggressive, competent, which is Miss Irene, what's the problem? Okay, well, I'm trying to think while I'm talking, so I need you to help me by not disturbing my thinking. Okay, so there's a whole series of these characteristics. Some, on a test, you can use some of the characteristics that we use to describe people in determining what is attractive to men and what is attractive to women. Like humorous, some people's characteristics or personality characteristics, not necessarily physical. So remember that we talked about other characteristics that are personality characteristics, like humorous, extroversion, introversion. Use your book, and so this is one where I tried to give you let you copy it directly out of the book. Rate of maturation refers to the different ages at which adolescents reach physical maturity. So basically, the way they describe it is that everybody goes through the same process. It's just that some people get there quicker and some people get there slower. Therefore, adolescence experiences different social, psychological environments at different ages. So we all have these differences that happen to us, the same experience, they just happen to us at different ages. And late maturing boys look younger and are treated as more immature than early maturing boys. So there's a little trick there in the logic. The later you mature, the younger you look. Early maturing boys are treated as more mature and treated more as grown-ups. Okay, so that's basically the briefing on this activity. You should look at your paper, reword it, make it clear to yourself, and save it, okay? It's possible that some of these can come up on your midterm exam. So, any questions about any of them? Any questions? Okay, so this is, we've gone through most of this material. We're going to review it again. So the material for this week, which is the third week, is cultural determinants of personality. You should have read the book by now. Does anybody have any questions that we can focus on? Okay, we can begin. Now. Okay, so in the last class we went through the material on cultural determinants of personality, and there's 3 different basic concepts of cultural variations. We'll talk about culture and personality, and then we'll look at the effects of social class differences. So the social class differences would be within the culture, but more or less in different groups of people that are separated by economic class. So first concept on culture. Every person lives in a society made up of different people. In addition, these societies are different. Societies within the cultures are different, and different societies have different experiences. So it can be, I'm speaking in a general sense for this because you've heard all this information before. Societies, large concept of society like pi people can be divided into different groups by ethnicity, which is the location of a group of people that are more isolated in these groups than others. And so that the northern people are more isolated from the eastern and the southern people. And most of this is a historical thing because in modern times, in these times now with telephones and television, and we have Thai television that is broadcasted all over the country. So we get to see people on TV, which were 20, 30, 40 years ago, we didn't. Or 50 or 60 years ago, we weren't able to see people on a regular basis where we knew, why are they talking like that? Well, people from the South speak that way. And now we know, everybody knows these groups differently, but they're still there, and they still influence each other differently than than they do in the North is different than the South. So their mannerisms, their use of the language, their rules for interrelating is not different 100%, it's just slightly different. But it's significant, and it's significantly different, and it's called ethnicity. Okay, there is a way to talk about these groups. In terms of ethnicity. So they're ethnic groups. So if you're from the North, if you're considered to be Manila, okay, y'all get situated, okay? Everybody okay? It's 25 minutes after 1. So ethnic groups are different within the culture. And the thing about it is, even within ethnic groups, there are different stories that hold and give the people an identity. So there's some stories that come from the East and the West, and they tell these stories as mythological stories. Not true stories, but stories of heroes or heroines. The female hero that has some role to play in the culture. These are mythological stories, and they are in every culture. In Thailand, you would have your own culture. They represent thinking, feelings, attitudes that people share within these ethnic groups. Culture has several meanings. To cultivate is to change or adapt to some aspect of experience. So it's like eating a food. When you first eat food that you might not like it, but when you get really hungry, it might taste really good. So as your mother cooks this food, no, I'm sweating. Go on mine. Is that air conditioning on? Because I know it gets cooler in here than this. Okay, I'm gonna have to bring you a mask or something. Because I know y'all don't want to be here dripping sweat. But if we have to wait, it takes a while to work. Okay, we're going to go a little quicker here and try to so before we get off of this idea of typical mythology, what I want you to do is to think about Thai story that has an idea. Thai stories, I can't smell that. I don't know really, I know what you're talking about because I've smelled it in other places in the building, but I don't smell it in here. So, it's not me, I promise. I don't promise, I don't know if it is, I don't think.
We're gonna die here? We're gonna die here?
Should we attack here?
It's
Very cold? Oh, that's very clear. I can understand exactly what you mean by that. So what I want you to do is think about some story that you know that has a mythological hero. Okay? Think about it now. I'm not going to tell you these stories. Okay, personality development, early development. Infants change greatly from the time they're born. When they're the smallest, as they grow, rate of change per size of the person is at the greatest point in their life. So when they double their size, they're actually doubling everything inside their bodies. As they grow and develop, they acquire new abilities and skills, including an identity that's connected to the identity of the culture. That is, they learn how to adjust to the expectations of their society. They understand approval and disapproval, and it's through this learning process that they are able to acquire an identity that is similar to social and cultural expectations. So you've seen this before, and I've explained it to you. So through doing this, children learn the rules that are expected of them in the society. Cultures have rules, and all cultures have different rules. They're not the same, and that's what makes the culture, the cultural identity or the cultural brand so different. In music, religion, art. Music, religion, art, all of these things are identified as culture. So, Thai music.
Thai music.
So, Thai music. So, Thai music is written in Thailand by Thai people. And you don't get other people from other cultures writing music like that, because their musics are different. You can identify people according to their music. But there are some things that are the same in different cultures. They call these universals. Every culture has them, but they vary. They don't stay the same. Like music. Everybody has music, but no one has Thai music, only Thailand. Some of the personality characteristics of cultural learning rules are child care and feeding, toilet training, protection from illnesses, which is often cleanliness, but it's also a series of rules in how to behave in terms of cleanliness and eating foods and things of that nature. Control of sexual and aggressive impulses, liberation from parental independence. Every person goes through these aspects of self-control, but they're different depending on the culture that you're in. These are, there's an expression of, say, for instance, the conflict of child care and feeding is expressed in breastfeeding. This is where the critical aspect of the child develops to the point of a crisis. The crisis is the child has to learn how to eat solid food and quit depending on the mother. So breastfeeding is one of the things that puts a burden on the child to quit, to stop feeding from the mother's breast and learn how to eat. The child doesn't want to do this, so the child has to learn through a series of experiences how to do it. These variations, what is expected from the child will vary in different cultures. For instance, in America, most children are raised just for a few months from the mother. They receive their food after a few months from a bottle or from eating solid food. In other cultures, 5 or 6 years, the baby can still be 5 or 6 years old and be feeding from the mother. But regardless of what age is expected by the culture, everybody has to learn how to not expect to eat from their mother's breast unless they die very young. They will have to learn how to be independent. It's just at different ages. This is the variation. The same thing is true of toilet training. Cultural expectations can vary between different cultures. So the idea is that a child can learn how to use the toilet over long periods of time with help, or they may be imposed upon to learn very early, within a 6-month period, so that the child may have to use the toilet correctly and cleanly at an early age. The thing to note about the toilet training is that personality is directly linked to these practices, even breastfeeding. I gave you an example last week or earlier this week about the child that doesn't want to use the toilet will maybe develop a disposition, a learned disposition as opposed to an inherited disposition, from, to hold on to things, to keep things. And they may be considered to be stingy or kenio. So people sometimes learn these habits, not only from, sometimes they're not just hereditary, dispositions can also be learned at a very early age. But they're can still be dispositional, predispositional. Puberty is a transition to adulthood. It's on page 63. It is very important and essential that you read through these sections and to get a firm and clear understanding of these processes. In America, puberty, the actual movement from childhood to an adult, is considered to be short-term in some aspects. For instance, the idea that a child can wait until they finish college to decide what their career is going to be, there's a lot of pressure on children to make decisions about this early. So there's pressure on children to make decisions. But it's still, in all sophisticated societies where education is extended to long periods of time, like this society, you are given a longer period of time in a situation where responsibilities of adulthood is not placed directly upon you. So in some cultures, in older cultures that are less sophisticated, women may begin to get married and have children at 13 or 15 years old. This is when the population is very small, and it's a survival characteristic to expect these people, when they're able to reproduce, to reproduce. And when this happens between a young woman and a young man, they immediately move into adult position in society where they will take on responsibilities for themselves and for their family. So once these responsibilities are accepted, the transition from adult into adulthood, it happens quickly. In other situations like we talked about before, it takes a long time. We encourage people to not accept responsibility until they are much older. In Thailand, 21, 22, 23, when people get out of university, they want to get a job and go to work very enthusiastically. And they can continue, by accepting their responsibilities, they can continue their own lifestyle. So and we're going to talk about this some of the theoretical applications of these ideas after mentor. So this is the basic concept. They're different in every culture. There's a list here on universals and the variations. Universal feeding, toilet training, puberty, sexual control, and liberation. Sexual control, we didn't go into detail of it. This is the idea that the culture imposes upon each member rules that keep them from sexual expression inappropriate. And all of this is for the purpose of giving children a home with a mother and a father to raise them. This institution is protected and the culture survives. In cultures that it's not protected, the culture degenerates. So these rules, of course, modern society has changed a lot of things about this. So there's a lot of variations going on now, only simply because we live in a modern, changing cultural environments. And like the global, they call it the global village or the global society. But in another sense, it really is a global culture where cultural standards become less significant, and everyone around the world is more aware of other cultures. Liberation is an individual's liberation from the influence of the parent and separation. So this is something that happens in different ways in different cultures also. In Thailand, the family is still much more intact than it is in America. So now for decades, a decade is 10 years, and for decades the families have been separated and in different ways. The mothers and the grandparents were separated at an early age because the culture and the society provided special care for elderly people. So the grandparents were put into what they call old folks' home or geriatric centers where doctors and nurses could take care of them. And then they were separated from their grandchildren. So these separations are accepted and are different in different cultures. Today, it's not abnormal for children to finish their college education, get a job in 1,000 miles away from home, and only see their parents on holidays. This happens now, and so people become separated from their parents very easily. See, like right now, you're separated from your parents, but you're at a university that's reasonably close to home. So you're living in the center, pretty close. But if you get an international job when you finish college, you might be coming home only for holidays. So consider these things and give yourself and try to identify with them in some way. If you can't identify with them, then it's going to be harder to remember the lesson. Control of sexual expression refers to the rules cultural rules that are imposed upon the members to organize family life within the culture. So you know in Thailand that whenever a young man and a young woman meet together, they like each other. If they bring them home to meet their parents, this is a very important thing in their relationship. This is a very important experience in their relationship. But if you don't do it, if you don't do that, it's like you can't get more serious about these people. But if you like them a lot, you go through these processes. Well, these processes are expected by the parents, by the grandparents, and by the neighbors and the people who know, who are part of the culture and the society. These are part of the rules that if you don't follow, that you will not be, that it will be noticed. Everybody will notice them. And the marriage takes place in a certain way, and people come together to witness what's happening. It makes it more serious and secure commitment. And that's what is believed in most cultures, to give the children a secure environment in which what? Which does what? It protects the culture. So the culture is also like a living thing. You know, the culture protects itself by giving you rules to follow. People have been doing this before your grandfather, and your great-grandfather, and it goes all the way back for hundreds of years. This is a system that worked, and it's still working today. So in the same sense that we talked about, now this is the second time you've heard this material. In the same sense that we talked about rewards and punishments, you can go ahead, you can finish talking. In the same sense that we talked earlier about rewards and punishment, that young babies know what is good and what is bad. Food is good, no food is bad. And they learn how to relate on the basis of rewards and punishments. So does personality respond to the same idea. We develop our traits, our motives, our values and ways of thinking by reward the child's, how the child is rewarded. Rewards are reinforcers that teach the child cold. Okay, can you turn off the air conditioning on, please? Oh yeah, turn this one off. This is a better one to turn off. This is the one that's making you cold. Okay, just wait a few minutes. Okay, hold on. Hold on. So it's through this it's through the cultural rewards and punishments that we develop certain traits, motives, values, and ways of thinking. Can you think of some types of rules that control the behavior of people in Thailand, of Thai people? You should think about some. You'll be asked to do that. So we develop patterns of personality based on these rewards and punishment. Characteristics that are often expressed in every culture to some degree are 1. Independence and individuality versus dependence and collectivity. Okay? So this is patterns of personality express these characteristics. Another pattern would be competition in personal achievement versus sharing and cooperation. Number 3, striving for achievement versus achievement means to achieve something higher than normal versus equality of position. For instance, I cannot do better than another person because it may affect their feelings, or it might hurt their feelings, or something of that nature. Okay, is there anything that's not clear about that? Okay, so that's an important aspect of the differences between different cultures. They can be seen in terms of independent or dependent, competitive or sharing, striving for achievement or equality. Can you see your culture in terms of those characteristics? Yes or no? Okay, we're going to get a chance to think about that in just a minute. The last aspect of cultural influences on personality has to do with social class differences. And this is similar to the ethnic groups we talked about before. People within a culture and society are also divided according to ethnic and social class groups. These subgroups have a different culture and philosophy of life, systems and values and ways of behaving. Sometimes they're just simply based on economics. If you do not have the ability to fly to Paris for the summertime, you will not learn how to appreciate the different culture of French people. The people who have this experience have a different set of values. These different classes or groups may express different values and behavior to their children. So what we're talking about in a general sense is within the family. We'll talk more about it as we go. But right now, we're just going to compare, use this chart to compare lower class mothers and middle class mothers and their style of relating to their children. It's called parental style, and the effect that it has on their child. So the lower class mothers, the research has shown them to be more permissive. Now, there's reasons to think like this. If a lower class mother may not be as educated as an upper class or middle class, and may not be concerned with work as much, may not have the needs for earning higher money or to be dependent on the husband. So the mother may stay with the children all the time, whereas a middle class mother may have other responsibilities beside the family. So she may be motivated to go to work, keep appointments, and she may spend less time with her children. Now, I don't know, and they explain this in the study, but the book doesn't report everything about the study, just some aspects. So the mother who's with the children all the time may become more permissive, more allowing to the children. She may breastfeed them longer, and she may toilet train them with less stress. So the effect on the child is that the child will like this and will be less frustrated. Now, frustration is a feeling of anxiety that's associated with obstacles that stand between me and what I want to happen. And we're going to talk more about that as we go through the course. Now, the mother who may not spend as much time, she may expect her children to behave in certain ways that are different. She may be more restricted. She may not be able to breastfeed them the same way. And she may not be able to toilet train them in the same way, so she may be more demanding upon the children. And this is going to frustrate the children. But when you read about this in your book, you should have read about this already. The result in the child with in the lower classes, because they're less imposed upon and less demanded of their behavior, they may come to express aggression, because aggression may be satisfying to them and help them get what they want. So by being forceful and aggressive, they may be able to succeed, so they may learn to be more aggressive and less inhibited, so they're not punished for very much. Whereas a child that has been more has been demanded of the child, they may have the ability to inhibit their aggression and suppress their activity level, and these things can help them in future life. Okay? Before we go on to the next, does anybody have, now we've gone over this material twice, and I think it's very important material, especially for your understanding the theories we're going to talk about coming up after a minute. So this is important information, and we're going to do an activity after the break. Okay? So go ahead and take a 10-minute break. Okay, so your chart will look like this. I want you to label the chart, social class, differences. Okay, so you'll start your social class differences, the relationship between a parent and the child. And you will draw okay? Now this is going to be, okay, all right, okay. Let's get started. You can work in pairs only. Okay? In the pair that you're working in, you will sign your name on each page, and that's the grade you'll get. So do not discuss this amongst different groups. You're in your pair, you work in your group only. Okay? Here is a chart. Students, hello. Here is the chart. The section is on page 64. You're going to, Hassan, listen to me.
Yes.
I've labeled the chart, the parent. I want you to describe the parent, the child rearing practice or the style of parenting, the way they relate to the child, the effect on the child, and the resulting behavior. Okay? Or the ability that the child, or the virtue that the child will learn from this experience. So this may be with them for life. They may not be children anymore. Okay? But they will have this ability to behave in a certain way. Okay, go ahead and begin. You don't need to be sitting that close to the next group, because I will mark your paper if I see you communicate. What group are you go? You two working together? Yeah, okay, so that should be three-person group, so you can work in three guys. Yeah. Okay. All of this one is C, would be the effect this has on the child. It'll be different, but it'll be related in this way. So the relationship goes this way, and the types go this way. Does that help a little bit? So every one of these blocks have different information in it. They're related to the top, L, and 2, the bottom. This would be L2. Okay. You can look at it that way to get organized.